On this Thursday night, bracing for impact. What Trump's tough immigration promise could mean for Canada before he even takes over the Oval Office.
All of the eyes are on the border.
The centuries-old law the new White House is set to take advantage of. Climate change and government changes.
There needs to be a big paradigm shift.
The politics of pollution and the effect of the new Trump presidency. Breaking news from Argentina, the charges just laid in the death of singer Liam Payne. And in Quebec,
are you ready for it?
The sweet surprise for a young cancer survivor and Taylor Swift fan.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. With Donald Trump about to take back power in the U.S., Canada is preparing for a major impact. From concerns about threats of mass deportations contributing to an already unprecedented backlog to protectionist trade policies, there could be huge implications, particularly for Alberta's energy sector. We'll get to that in just a moment. But we begin with a plan to ensure the integrity of our border and how Canada might handle a sudden surge of asylum seekers. Mackenzie Gray has our top story tonight.
It's a signature Donald Trump promise.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
A pledge that helped power Trump back to the Oval Office and now has the RCMP on high alert.
All of the eyes are on the border to see what's going to happen in the next few hours, the next few days, and the next few weeks.
The Mounties warning that some of the at least 12 million illegal immigrants in the U.S. may try and flee north to avoid deportation. And while there's yet to be an influx, it could come soon.
We anticipate that if it is going to happen, it's going to happen before the Trump administration comes into power.
If that happens, the RCMP believes migrants won't come through official channels. Someone in the U.S. illegally likely couldn't get a visa to fly to Canada and would be turned over to U.S. authorities crossing at a land border. But if they walk into Canada on foot and don't get caught for 14 days, they're able to apply for asylum, receive government benefits, and get a work permit. Making the forests and farmers' fields dotting the over 800-kilometer Quebec-U.S. border potentially ground zero.
The last time we lived something that would look like that was the saga of the Roxham Road.
It's illegal to cross the border here.
Which saw over 100,000 asylum claimants cross into Quebec, something Ottawa is eager to avoid a repeat of.
Canadians quite rightly believe that it needs to be a decision of Canada and Canadians who comes to our country and who doesn't.
But Chrystia Freeland might not have a choice. J.D. Vance has said it's reasonable to expect 1 million deportations a year, in part relying on a law from 1798, last used to intern people during the Second World War.
I think it's certainly feasible for hundreds of thousands to be formally removed.
But this former Trump administration immigration official believes making it harder for undocumented people to work in the U.S. would have a greater impact.
The thing that will be potentially more effective are actions persuading millions of illegal aliens to leave voluntarily.
And even if a small percentage of those people come to Canada, it would mean hundreds of thousands of new migrants, Carolyn, crushing an asylum system that already has a backlog of 250,000 people.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. Well, those with a stake in Canada's energy sector are also trying to anticipate what a second Trump administration will mean for their bottom line. There are a lot of unknowns, not only for the future of oil and gas exports, but also for our country's rapidly expanding clean energy sector. Heather Yourex-West looks at what those industries are preparing for.
Will the second term for President Trump kickstart a comeback for the Keystone XL pipeline? Could big U.S. clean energy subsidies come to an end? For Canada's energy sector, there's a lot on the line.
I think there are a lot of big uncertainties. There are uncertainties both on the positive side and on the negative side.
While restarting Keystone may seem unlikely, though Trump was once a supporter, Alberta's government would love to see big investment in big oil return.
Obviously, for us, market access is one of our top issues, and so I think that could be a positive discussion that we'd want to have.
While a blanket 10% tariff on oil and natural gas exports to the U.S. could be devastating to the non-renewable industry, there could be opportunity for Canadian renewables to excel.
There's a real threat that the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the landmark climate legislation passed under the Biden administration, that it could potentially be repealed.
Canceling clean energy subsidies or investment in the U.S. could send those dollars north.
So Canada has this ability now to take a strategic perspective if the IRA is repealed and think about where it's actually going to compete and actually steal that market share.
But there are fears for Canada's energy transition. Chima Justin Ezekiel is a Calgary scientist working to develop geothermal electricity. U.S. investment in clean energy research under Joe Biden, he says, helped fuel labs worldwide.
These funding helped lots of researchers around the world to collaborate with institutions in the U.S. to push for these technologies, to push for their feasibility, to push for pilot tests.
The future of this research now up in the air as players across Canada's energy sector look to an unpredictable incoming president to see what he'll do next. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
U.S. President Joe Biden addressed the nation today, his first public remark since Donald Trump's decisive victory. His message was about unity.
Look, folks, you all know it in your lives. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable.
Biden is promising a smooth transition for Trump, but as Jackson Prosko reports from Washington, Democrats are looking for someone to blame for the loss.
The only man to ever defeat Donald Trump at the ballot box is now preparing to welcome him back to the White House.
I'll fulfill my oath, and I will honor the Constitution. On January 20th, we'll have a peaceful transfer of power here in America.
For the first time, President Joe Biden addressed the stunning defeat of Vice President Kamala Harris, but made no mention of any role he may have played in propelling Trump back into office.
Remember, a defeat does not mean we are defeated.
Democrats are angrily pointing the finger, questioning Biden's initial decision to run for a second term and his reluctance to leave the race.
With the COVID,
despite his visible decline. Biden's messaging about the economy often felt tone deaf and ignored real concerns about the cost of living.
America now has the strongest growth, the lowest inflation rate of any major economy in the world.
By the time he dropped out, Harris had just 107 days to turn things around.
And then you had to do it with the fact that you're still running as vice president for the person who everybody's blaming for their economic hardships. That's a real tough nut to crack for anyone.
Harris and her team faced their own criticism. She was unable or unwilling to distance herself from Biden. Voters felt she was too slow to define what she stood for. At a time when Western democracies are ditching their incumbents, none of that may have mattered. A former president was still able to position himself as an agent of change.
America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate.
As Trump and his team prepare to return to power, Biden has vowed a smooth transition. The soul-searching amongst Democrats will continue long after he leaves the White House. Meanwhile, Trump's transition plans are in full swing. In the coming days, it's expected he'll announce his top picks for White House jobs, along with the members of his cabinet. And with Republicans in full control of the Senate, he won't have any trouble at confirmation hearings to get them into their jobs. Carolyn?
Jackson Prosko in Washington for us. Thank you. Well, frustration over the cost of living helped fuel Trump's victory. And today there was a sign that pressure may be starting to ease for American families. The U.S. Federal Reserve cut its key interest rate by a quarter point to 4.6%. Canada is at 3.75%. The Fed's chairman says the cut reflects its focus on supporting the job market as well as fighting inflation, but said it had nothing to do with the U.S. election results. One of America's fiercest opponents, Vladimir Putin, offered congratulations to President-elect Trump today, saying he's ready to hold discussions with him. In his first public remarks since Trump's win, Putin also took aim at NATO, calling it a blatant anachronism needed by the U.S. to dominate its zone of influence. He has long expressed a desire to dismantle the alliance, which was formed after the Second World War, primarily to block the expansion of the Soviet Union. It's been a dramatic 24 hours of political developments in Germany. Its coalition government has collapsed. leaving the country at risk of a snap election. A high-stakes night of negotiations ended with a dramatic announcement from Chancellor Olaf Scholz that he had fired the finance minister. The bombshell comes as the nation's economy faces a second year without growth. Despite calls from opposition leaders for early elections, Scholz is promising to hold a confidence vote in the new year, which could lead to an election by March. Up in flames. Coming up, the fast-moving wildfires ripping through Southern California tonight. Plus, why climate scientists are worried about Donald Trump's return to the White House. And the charges just laid in the death of singer Liam Payne. Crews in Southern California are battling a fast-moving fire northwest of Los Angeles. It started as a small brush fire yesterday during unseasonably warm November weather and exploded into an inferno. Nearly 6,000 hectares are burned and dozens of homes destroyed.
It's hard to see the neighbor's house. I mean, I feel lucky that, our house survived. The people across the street from us lost their house. They just moved in 2 weeks ago or so.
More than 10,000 people are under an evacuation order. The fire is being driven by extremely dry vegetation and fierce Santa Ana winds. Forecasters say the wind should ease over the next couple of days. The European Climate Agency Copernicus warned today that 2024 will be the warmest year on record. It also said that for the first time, global warming will exceed 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. World leaders are set to meet next week for the COP29 climate summit. But as Redmond Shannon reports, there is concern the results of the U.S. election may derail progress in curbing emissions.
Nearly 100 people are still missing after Spain's deadly flash floods. The weather system that produced all that rain, scientists say, is among those made worse by our warming planet. Europe's Copernicus Climate Change Service says it is virtually certain 2024 will be the hottest year in recorded history, topping the previous record set last year. And for the first time, the average global temperature will likely surpass 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. It wasn't even a decade ago the Paris Climate Accord sought to limit increases to 1.5 degrees, averaged across 20 years.
I call it psychological because it's something that's been agreed not only among scientists, but between scientists and policymakers.
Donald Trump has called climate change a hoax and in his first term announced,
"The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord."
Joe Biden reversed that, but it's expected Trump could withdraw again. During this campaign, he promised,
First day, first hour, we can do many things in the first, but first, we're going to drill, baby, drill.
Trump's re-election comes just days before this year's global climate summit in oil-rich Azerbaijan. Canadian Robbie Rada will be there.
It's unfortunate from the perspective of climate change, sustainability, particularly climate action.
The politics of pollution is looming over Canada's next election too.
This tax doesn't stop floods, fires, or droughts.
Climate change costs money.
Political winds can shift, but while world leaders debate climate policies, the planet is already feeling the heat like never before. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Oh my God, I have to turn around. It's crazy out here.
Dramatic video from BC's Sunshine Coast shows trees toppling over in a rare tornado sighting for the province. It has been confirmed by Environment Canada. It happened Monday morning as a major windstorm was sweeping through southern parts of the province. Western University's Northern Tornadoes Project reports it was a weak EF0 tornado with winds up to 115 kilometers an hour. Ticked off over TikTok. Ahead, why Ottawa is shutting down the company's Canadian offices and what this means if you use the app. In Argentina, authorities say they have charged 3 people in connection with the death of former One Direction singer Liam Payne. Local prosecutors say they arrested a hotel worker and an alleged drug dealer on charges related to supplying narcotics. A friend of the 31-year-old musician has also been charged with abandonment of a person followed by death. Payne fell from the third floor of his hotel in Buenos Aires last month. An autopsy found multiple drugs in his body, including cocaine. Back in Canada, the federal government is ordering TikTok to close its Canadian offices. Ottawa is not blocking Canadians from using the popular social media app. As Daria Isri reports, the decision is meant to address risks related to the Chinese company behind the app.
TikTok has 1 billion users worldwide and more than 100 offices globally, a number that's set to shrink by at least 2.
We came to the conclusion that the activities conducted at the offices of TikTok in Toronto and in Vancouver would be injurious to our national security.
Ottawa has ordered the company to close its offices in Toronto and Vancouver.
These social media platforms can be used to amplify disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, and to tilt public views in ways that are not in Canada's national interest.
Canada's former spy chief warned TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, could use the app to glean information about Canadians.
I think Canadians need to listen.
The federal government says the closures are based on evidence collected by Canada's intelligence agencies, but they haven't revealed exactly what they found. Despite the order, Ottawa is not banning Canadians from using TikTok.
Focusing on the corporate entity and basically kicking it out of the country doesn't really solve any of those issues. And if anything, it just seems to make it harder to enforce Canadian privacy laws, security laws.
The company has vowed to challenge the move in court, saying shutting down TikTok's offices and destroying hundreds of well-paying local jobs is not in anyone's best interest. It's the latest sign of trouble for a company facing mounting lawsuits across North America and a looming ban in the U.S. But Donald Trump's election may provide the platform with some relief.
For all of those that want to save TikTok in America, vote for Trump.
While TikTok's physical presence may be disappearing in Canada, its digital footprint is only expanding. According to SimilarWeb, a site monitoring online traffic, the social media platform is downloaded roughly 700,000 times a month in this country. Carolyn?
Daria Isri in Montreal, thank you. In Ottawa, veteran Canadian journalist David Pugliese testified before the Public Safety and National Security Committee today over allegations he's a Russian spy.
Mr. Alexander, in his presentation to the committee, suggests my journalism helps the Russians and divides Canadians, and yet nothing is further from the truth.
The Ottawa Citizen reporter made his case to MPs pushing back against accusations from former Conservative Cabinet Minister Chris Alexander. Last month, Alexander testified before the same committee, pointing to documents he says show evidence the KGB recruited Pugliese in the 80s. Several experts have told Global News that while the files appear authentic and show Russian interest in Pugliese, they do not indicate whether the Soviet spy agency actually approached him. The gift of Swift. Next, one tiny superfan's journey to a pair of coveted Taylor Swift tickets. The Professional Women's Hockey League unveiled the official uniforms for all 6 teams ahead of its second season today. The jerseys now feature every team's new branding. All PWHL teams played the league's inaugural season without official names or logos. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour comes to Toronto 1 week from today. The shows were sold out in seconds, but that hasn't stopped one determined mom from trying to get her daughter a seat. At 3 years old, Kiara Langton has already battled incredible odds, and Global's Felicia Perillo was there as she received the surprise of a lifetime.
Kiara Langton and her family have been through the biggest struggle of their lives in the last year and a half. The 3-year-old toddler is now in remission, but much of her days have been filled with hospital visits, chemotherapy, and appointments for her fight against leukemia.
We still are at the hospital every 2 weeks, still doing chemo at home. We still have random trips to the ER if we get fevers and things.
Music has been Kiara's lifeline. especially Taylor Swift's tunes. Her mother is a proud Swiftie, and the obsession has clearly rubbed off on her daughter. From dressing up as the singer to mimicking her choreographies with instruments, microphones, and of course, learning all lyrics to all her songs. Her mother says the music has helped give her comfort during the most painful times.
One of our favorites, which we both have on bracelets, is I'm a real tough kid, I can handle it. We will sing that one before chemo. We will watch the video of it as we're getting ready. It's kind of our little hype-up song.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
Kiara's mom says ever since her daughters learned about Swift's Eras Tour, her dream has been to see her idol perform in person.
Just to give her that normal experience, that just life is normal. We can go to a concert, we can experience this fun, magical event and just kind of wash away the past year and a half.
After seeing Kiara's story, the company sponsoring Swift's Canadian tour dates decided to gift Kiara and her mother 2 tickets along with travel and hotel to Toronto.
Thank you so much. Kiara! You're welcome. Kiara! I'm going to
A happy ending for a kid who knows hard times all too well and proof even the wildest dreams can come true. Felicia Perillo, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. Tonight's Your Canada is this display of hand-knitted poppies in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. We love to see your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow.